Following the exit of Toni Kroos, it has been made clear this season that Real Madrid requires a new orchestrator to take charge and guide the team's performance on the field. We want to analyze at football language whether Real Madrid currently has a player in the squad capable of taking on that role, who could take on that role even without having the same qualities. And, in contrast, we will comb through the market to see what options are available for Real Madrid and which ones I like. I'm getting involved in football language. Let's see. Hello to the football language family. It is more than evident that Xabi Alonso requires a midfielder who possesses the exact traits he exhibited during his playing days. That type of positional player who can consistently remain behind the ball line while constructing his team and is capable of orchestrating the attacks for Real Madrid. That player was Toni Kroos, a fantastic player, who had similar traits, maybe playing a little nearer to the goal area. Or perhaps more supported by another midfielder who had more defensive characteristics as Casemiro did. But clearly, that Xabi Alonso wasn't the best at defending. He was positional, certainly, and intelligent, just like Toni Kroos. In my view, two players, very difficult to replicate, clearly. What can Real Madrid do? Well, first of all, I believe that the player with the characteristics to be that footballer, based on how he acts in the team's game, in terms of positioning, that is Tchouaméni. For his positioning, since he is a positional player who plays in front of the defense. Nevertheless, he has the skill to do what Xabi Alonso did or what Toni Kroos does. In my view, not even for what Casemiro is doing. Now it looks like we may have underestimated him a little, since he wasn't that bad with the ball. Especially next to Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, but Tchouaméni could be the player who... Is it worth it for Xabi Alonso? Obviously not. Personally, I don't like it. It looks like it is for Xabi Alonso, and I think he will receive a lot of attention and importance, but he will have to be surrounded by a player who is capable of shoulder the responsibility of the match. And Aurelian isn't it. Bellingham could be that player, another one of the great midfielders of Real Madrid, but in my opinion he shouldn't be either. I believe he lacks the attributes even if he is very good. He is a player who needs to have a lot of freedom. We must allow him to reach the area and play a bit freely. Who can move across the field without being fixed in one spot. Federico faces a similar issue. Valverde, well, without a doubt, one of the best midfielders of Real Madrid and of the globe. He could potentially play a little more withdrawn than Bellingham, and I say this because it looks like Bellingham should be positioned very high up as he has scored a lot of goals, but if he were given the opportunity... But do you understand how much power the little bird has? He hits the ball fantastically, but that's not everything. For my part, in the central lane, he would excel much more with a specific position. A game system in which Real Madrid will play with a positional midfielder. Federico may play as a right-sided midfielder, making continuous incursions into the area, going up and down. It would be a sight to behold. Well, the difference from being a very good player to being that player like Xavi, Aaron, Soton and Kroos, in my opinion, is quite large. Eduardo Camavinga could be another player based on his skills, the sportsman, who might excel the most. The truth is that this season he has suffered many injuries, which is bad luck for the French athlete. And it's yet to be determined if he can take on that responsibility and weight. He has more physical talent than technical skill. We definitely cannot compare him to Xabi Alonso or Toni Kroos. But maybe he could due to his personality. It's still to be determined. The player Ancelotti has attempted to mold into that type is Dani Ceballos. Has he been successful? No, in my view. It seems he is a player with more quality than those we have mentioned so far. And I say seems because then reality is that to assume such a responsibility and be capable of directing the game for Real Madrid is quite significant, particularly in a team that tends to become so chaotic that when everyone attacks it is very challenging. We must give a lot of credit to what Toni Kroos and Xabi Alonso accomplished in the past. I think Ceballos is a player who can also assist, another player who possesses those characteristics, who has that capability like the German and Spanish Xabi Alonso had, that I spoke of. I don't believe Ceballos is that player. I don't think so, and I don't like it. Why did Ceballos play with Ancelotti? Because at the beginning of the season, I believe Luka Modric first became aware that after the retirement of Toni Kroos required a player with those characteristics, and they initially tried with Ceballos, also because Luka Modric needed to be taken care of a bit. Let him. We all know he was 40 years old. He had to wait to gradually get into the season so that he would be in top form for the big matches, for the finals, for the Champions League knockouts. I also tell you that Luka Modric wasn't that player that Toni Kroos was. Perhaps he would be more of that Ceballos profile. With all due respect, Luka Modric is much better, but a player who can accompany another player who indeed carries the weight of the match. Who is the metronome? Of course, Luka Modric has a lot of quality. He had a lot of quality. He has to play in Italy, at Milan, but he's not with Real Madrid anymore. He definitely had a lot of quality, but he wasn't the kind of player who could handle the pressure of the game. Another option that I see that can be utilized, Xabi Alonso could be Alexander-Arnold. Be careful, because at Liverpool he has not only played as a midfielder in the offensive phase of the game, but he has also played regularly in that position. In some matches he was almost a central midfielder for the entire match. Could he be that player? I think he could be and might be much closer than what we've mentioned about the previous players. But there is a problem that I think, particularly, in my opinion, in my personal taste, it does not meet the characteristics that it is that seeks the last pass all the time. It's way too aggressive with the ball, always seeks to find, I'm not certain, it's very much in the English style, and indeed it has a long passing game, like Toni Kroos and Xabi Alonso had, but is not very familiar with it. To begin with, it will be challenging for him to adjust to being surrounded by players everywhere. I don't know if he will be able to adequately protect the ball, to control it, to have that peripheral vision, that 360-degree awareness to know where the players are coming from. I don't think he will reach that level. In long passing he is, but to have that calmness and patience, to be that guy. I think it would make Real Madrid even more insane. It could be appealing to Xabi Alonso, and we might find ourselves with a team that is possibly more defensive and more closed off. I think this isn't what Xabi Alonso wants, as he seems to prefer high pressure. To steal the ball in the opponent's half and maintain possession. However, it could possibly be Alexander, if given opportunities perhaps, although for a different style of play that I do not prefer. And that's why Xabi Alonso has chosen Arda Güler from what he has in the squad. Arda Güler might be the most talented player. Undoubtedly, I mean, how he handles the ball, how he keeps it glued to his foot, the game vision he possesses, which is very good. At this moment, to shoulder the load of a complete Real Madrid, we should note that he is a player who is still very young, and furthermore, he is a player who comes from a completely different positioning. He was positioned on the right flank, actively playing in the attacking midfield, if you will, but to place you in a central midfield role, well, clearly he will make a lot of mistakes when passing the ball, many errors in not being a true central midfielder, and also due to his young age. Moreover, he lacks an imposing physique to effectively cut off the opponent's attacks. nor to be a positional player. A lot of what Arda Güler has is lost. He also reaches the goal, and this is what often happens at Real Madrid, where there are many good players and midfielders, but they all attack well. But it is not necessary for everyone to attack very well and to know how to shoot at goal. If Real Madrid needs a midfielder who cannot shoot at goal, who does not know how to, honestly, it is not essential if the others know. Everyone knows, even the defenders know, that player is needed. So let's check the market to see what's available. Would have Xavi Alonso with Real Madrid to occupy this spot. First of all, I want to tell you that I am not going to analyze potential players who could occupy that position, but it remains to be seen. We don't know, but he is a player I like, right? I'm not going to mention names of players who are already established and tested in elite football and who probably have that level for Real Madrid. Getting to Real Madrid is another matter. But that have that Real Madrid level, you're going to pay some money and you're going to bring them in, and they come with a star aura. The first on the list, I'm going to give you two lists first. A list that I feel has no players, back to the same topic. Are players similar to those already at Real Madrid, but they are names that sound interesting and could be worth a look. My favorite players, those who I believe could fulfill that role and have a Real Madrid level in my opinion. Let's start with the first list. A player list. It's true that they also possess a more of a midfield playmaker role, and Real Madrid already has that, but I will list them, starting with Bruno Fernandes, the first on the list. The Portuguese player from Manchester United has an undeniable quality, and with Ruben Almorin, he is playing in the double pivot. He already played it with Tenas, but now he is playing many matches in the double pivot, practically supporting Casemiro. That is, can he carry out that function? Due to his skill? Yes, but he would probably forfeit many of his characteristics of entering the area. That's why I wouldn't place him either. And I also think he is a challenging player. He's too much of a grump, constantly with his brows knitted on the pitch. I don't care for him. In other words, he already mingles with Vinicius. They start chatting in Portuguese, and we've already stirred up trouble. So the next one on the list is James Maddison. I include him because he is a talent I truly admire. I mean, he played for Leicester, and you think, but from Leicester? Yes, but he hasn't fared well at Tottenham either. It's clear that yes, it won't be great when the teams he's played for aren't performing well, or if he joins Tottenham considering their current situation. But I really love this player. I really like him, and it's true that Andrei Postecoglou has somewhat restrained him and shifted him from the attacking midfielder role to more of an interior position. He frequently comes back to receive the ball and lead the play for Tottenham. He could be an interesting player. Surely Real Madrid doesn't see his value, and what we're discussing is somewhat related to that profile. Bruno Guimaraes might be the third name on this list. Bruno Guimaraes, the Newcastle Brazilian, he is a player who has been mentioned a lot in connection with Barcelona, and I think he possesses the leadership skills to guide a team and take control of it himself, asking me to give them all to him. He has that personality, but I keep insisting on the same thing. I believe he needs to be closer to the area to make that final pass, even to score a goal. I think being further away doesn't suit him as much. Attached to a midfield position, but it could be an interesting option. And I'm telling you about one of the most discussed players. Enzo Fernandez, the Argentine player from Chelsea, is undoubtedly one of the best midfielders. He has just won the Club World Cup. Would you like more information? Well, yes, I will tell you. I think that we are in a very similar situation, although in many matches he has played alongside Moises Caicedo. It's true that, for example, in the final, they placed Reeves James next to Moises Caicedo so that Enzo Fernandez, he will play as an attacking midfielder and would be more fun. I don't think he is a player who has fully adapted. We're returning to the same discussion about the central midfield role, even though he has undeniable talent. Naturally, Real Madrid is pursuing him, and he would make an excellent addition to the team. However, we still lack that player who I believe could be one of these four that I will mention, starting with another Argentine. It's Alexis McAllister. Okay, it will cost Real Madrid a fortune, and he usually plays in a double pivot. We've seen him with Klopp. While using the 4-3-3, he served as the central pivot in that positional midfield position. And he also loses out. I see that you are somewhat restricting him and he also needs a bit more freedom, but it is true that he has been able to perform in a double pivot. It has been noted that he can lead Liverpool, guiding and managing it better than Enzo Fernandez manages Chelsea. I feel that Chelsea cannot control the game with Enzo Fernandez, but Liverpool can do it with him. Alexis Mac Allister does give me that feeling, especially in a double pivot role. He is capable of playing similarly to how Pedri has performed at FC Barcelona. Another name on the list is Nicolo Varela, who is likely to be somewhat more affordable. Because Alexis Mac Allister is 26 years old while Nicolo Varela is 28. I'm sharing these four from the list in my preferred order that I like for Real Madrid. Alexis Mac Allister, and then Nicolo Varela, Nicolo Varela, Nicolo Varela. Interista, an Italian player. He is a player that I think could potentially take on the role of managing Real Madrid, and he is rumored to be linked with the club. While it might be a more cost-effective option, there are also other factors to consider. Who might be a little restricted in his position as a midfielder. Alright, let's go to the next one. What do you think about this? I feel we are almost at the point of mentioning my favorite, who is Joshua Kimmich. The German player from Bayern Munich is someone who is accustomed to playing in a double pivot formation, but he definitely plays that positional midfielder role much more effectively. Unlike Nicolo Varela, I'm uncertain if he would be qualified. It would need to be seen because he has played alongside Çalhanoğlu, and Çalhanoğlu has indeed performed that role a bit. So we would see how he would take on that function. But I believe Joshua Kimmich can take on that role, even in a double pivot, and I think he is the right player for Real Madrid, but he is 29, not 28 like Varela, or 26 like Mac Allister. He is 29, and I wonder if Florentino would want to sign him. And my favorite, without question, is Rodri Hernandez, the recent Ballon d'Or and Spanish player, and there is no one else like him. He is precisely that player that Real Madrid needs, that positional player, that central midfielder who can control Real Madrid's attacks and rectify the tactical errors of his teammates due to the mess that Real Madrid has, who all attack at once. He is a great fit for Real Madrid, and he does reach the goal and has scored several goals. Rodri has perhaps too much attack. But for me, he is undoubtedly the best. However, at 30 years old, it's unlikely he can leave Manchester City, but that would be the example he should follow. Well, the player who wants to perform this role. Rodri Hernandez cannot fulfill this role at Real Madrid. They should search the Real Madrid market for players with that profile. And they should look for perhaps younger players, maybe future prospects, whose performance is uncertain, but as he has done by going to Brazil, for example. He has brought in good players like Florentino Perez, who have succeeded at Real Madrid. Maybe he can do it for this role. Tell me if you know any player who could fit in. Considering these traits of a young player who could potentially join Real Madrid, you have that trust in him, believing he can excel at Real Madrid and take on that prominent role. And please let me know if I've overlooked anyone you consider significant, because primarily I've focused on the Premier League. So I'm not sure. Maybe you'll say, hey, there are other leagues with interesting players I haven't mentioned, like Vitinha, for instance. But at PSG, it's not like we could add him to this list. Look, I had overlooked him. Let me know if there's any player similar to Vitinha that I may have overlooked, and see you in the next video.